Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Kith Kin podcast, stories from the hospitality industry. And I'm really excited to welcome Sam here today to tell us about his story, his journey through hospitality, and to tell us all about what makes him feel that hospitality is such a special industry to be in. So, hi Sam, how are you?
Cassie, I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on the show.
It's great to have you here. So let's start by you introducing yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Sam Harrison. I'm based in London and across Hammersmith, Chiswick, Brentford. I have 6 hospitality. We have 2 large brasseries, smaller time cafes that then morph into something else in the evening, 2 deli food shops.
Amazing. And I know because I've seen your websites, they are absolutely beautiful. But we'll get to them in a minute. Let's from where did you start? How did you start in hospitality and how did you create your empire?
Right, get asked that. I always remember, I have to remind myself and then pleasantly remember, actually quite a few people who maybe end up in hospitality, academia was not maybe a natural fit for me. I love sport, I love being part of a team, but I wasn't very good at sitting in a classroom and being told what to do probably, and definitely not very good at studying. But I had a godmother who I was very close to. She had a catering business. And so when I was sort of 16, 17, I used to help her pull off these crazy weddings, parties, events. And I loved it, the total madness of it. And that was my first sort of experience. I decided to do hotel and restaurant management at university, which I loved. And while I did that, I placement at Chewton Glen, the hotel, which at the time was the most expensive hotel outside London. And I did 6 months in the restaurant with a totally French brigade, front of house. I was the only English. Spoke to me. I basically did a lot of polishing cutlery, but I sort of did my time, and then I did chambermaiding, and I did everything. I quite like laundry. And then when I left university, most people doing my course were going to do a graduate scheme with one of the big hotel chains like Hilton or Sheraton. And this was back in 96, and I had quite big student loans, and they were offering you, I think, about 8,000 or 9,000. And Walker's Crisps on their graduate scheme offered you 16,000 and a car. And so that was a no-brainer.
Easy decision.
Went you as a salesman on the road. Actually, I mean, I did 18 months of Walker's Crisps. I didn't really enjoy any of it, but it was a brilliant life lesson because I was out on the road selling crisps to cash and carry owners. Thought I knew everything out of the university. I knew absolutely nothing. I was so green. And it just basically taught me about how important skills, life skills, and at the end of the day, we're all salesmen, whatever we end up doing, I think. I pretty soon knew it wasn't for me. I then went to work, was still Trust House Forte. I sort of slipped over to their graduate scheme, which was where I probably wanted to be. But the big corporate, particularly big hotels, were not for me. Or I'd always enjoyed family holidays in Cornwall, a big part of growing up. And I saw that Rick Stein was looking for staff in the seafood restaurant. This is in 97. I think it was in the back of the Sunday Times. Went down. I took a job for the summer as a waiter. After about 3 months, I was head waiter. After 6 months, I was restaurant manager. And after a year, I became totally out of my depth. Rick was looking for a general manager, a business, and I was only 27. And I kept seeing him interview these people in the restaurant. Kept saying that it wasn't what he was looking for. That, like, to me, they looked like sort of probably in their 50s, had run some amazing places, but were probably thinking, well, this is nice. I'll move the family to Cornwall. I got the feeling that Rick wanted someone under his wing. I wrote an old-fashioned written letter, because it was pre-email and all that, into Rick's office. Didn't expect him to give me the time of day, but he did. I convinced Rick and Jill to have a go at running the seafood restaurant. We went on this a crazy journey. They taught me most I know about running restaurants, and while I was there, we opened the cafe, the cookery school, fish and chip shop, loads of bedrooms. It was an amazing experience. And I still, to this day, that I basically gave my life and soul to Rick, which I did. I did some crazy hours, but I learned so much. And then a few years later, when I was ready to launch my first restaurant, aged 32, in 2005, Sam Harrison trying to open a big restaurant in Chiswick, I would have probably struggled. I might have just somehow got the money together, but Rick backed me, gave it a lot more credibility in terms of the bank, other investors, but also, let's be brutally honest, it made it a story, and a really nice story. The Rick backs ex-general manager. We opened Sam's Brasserie in 2005. Then, because of my time with Rick, in Rick and opening, I'd spent some time in Australia running restaurants through contact of Rick's. I running restaurants, if you know what I mean. The day-to-day operation, service, menus, all of that. What I didn't know, having your own business, cash flow management and just all of that, which I think is almost impossible to learn until you're in it.
Yeah.
So with Rick, I had been involved in all of that, but it wasn't my money. It's slightly different. Anyway, 2005, and we were lucky. We got pretty good reviews from the start. The restaurant scene back then wasn't what it is now. It just wasn't. There was, Soho hadn't really happened. Shoreditch, East London certainly hadn't happened. Many of the big names that we think of in London now hadn't even been born. The whole chain thing hadn't really happened. It was a very different. I still remember standing outside the newsagent, a Mashler review in the Evening Standard. That's what mattered. Internet, no social media. Kind of insane, when you think 20 years ago. So did pretty well from day one. Later, we opened a second restaurant in Balham. We didn't want to call it Sam's 2 because we didn't want to be a chain. Harrison's, which is my surname, Harrison. I think that was the right decision. They were different restaurants, own identity. And 10 years later, 2 restaurants had burnt out. And
yeah.
My friends used to joke that I was either in one of my restaurants or moped trying to get from one to the other. Pretty much summed it up. I loved what I did, but I didn't really have a life outside of it for 10 years. And eventually I had a mini breakdown, which I shame about. It was something that happened and probably had to happen, but I had to take some time away from work. When I came back, I think probably not totally out of the blue, the Hawksmoor Group made an approach to buy both restaurants, looking to expand their secondary brand, Foxlow, which exists. But anyway, they made us a good offer to buy both restaurants. It was the right timing for me. It meant that Rick and my other investors made a decent return. And it felt good to walk away. And I think we could be proud of what we've done. Time out. I needed some time out. I thought I was going to open a hotel in the Cotswolds. I still love it because I think they're an amazing model, making money when people sleep.
Yeah, lovely. If only it was that easy.
But I love the concept anyway. There I will. But I offer in hotel in the Cotswolds. I thought it had been accepted. And then the agent called me and said, "Have you just increased your offer?" And I said, "No, why would I?" And he went, "Well, somebody has." And I said, "Well, it's not my offer." Anyway, someone outbid me by too much, want to match them. So they got it. And actually, again, with hindsight, I'm pleased because actually I did want to come back to London. And I probably needed that to happen to realize that. In about 2018, I got approached by the landlord where we are now in Hammersmith. Studios were redeveloping right here on the river. Wanted someone to open a big restaurant. They've been fans of my old place in Chiswick. We started a conversation. I know this area very well because I was brought up about 10 minutes walk away. It's in my blood. I like to think.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of childhood by the River Thames here. It felt right. And actually at that stage, and when I raised for this, somewhere in my business plan, it will say that I just wanted to do one restaurant, do it really well, it's work-life balance.
Yeah.
And here we are 5 years later, 6 places. So I'm not quite sure what happened, but it's anyway. They're all great, and it's been amazing.
So it was really interesting just what you were saying. Actually, there's so much actually resonates with me. Up to this point, there's lots of resonates with me because I opened a restaurant at exactly the same time. It was all, and I had 2 places, and exactly that. You're just between the 2 places and running around and sort of, yeah. But burnout's not really surprising particularly when you're coming into it reasonably young and you've not learnt those lessons about how to look after yourself. And I think actually that's also part of how the industry used to be. I think the industry's got better these days, but it used to be very much, this demonstration of just keep going. There isn't time for a break. And I think that's, so I think it's quite a common story really, that you start young, you work really hard and then you just keep doing that. And actually eventually either people leave the industry or they break. And so, yeah, I sort of quite resonate with that.
You're right, but good reasons, but also for many not good. I mean, it's just can be a relentless business because when do you really close? I mean, after a late night, we lock up at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then we're back in again at 8 o'clock in the morning. There's no real days a week. I think if you're an entrepreneurial type spirit and you're passionate about your business, driven to succeed, it's very hard to step back. I think that
so how have you managed that? Because obviously when you've come back into it, you've been very aware of that. You had the opportunity to sort of start again and then therefore design it better for yourself. So how did you approach that in terms of making sure that you didn't make that same mistake that take that same approach?
If I'm honest, I'm not done 6 places in 5 years. I'm not sure I have learned, but
yeah, fair enough.
I know. I tell you what happened. I mean, when I thought I was just going to do this one restaurant really well, be confident I could raise the money through private investors. I could have done it on my own to a bigger the business, to that I didn't, this is one thing, but they're not involved day to day. And I just didn't. I wanted to have someone to lean on or someone to share the burden with. So I thought about that long and hard, and I was partner Fanny to work for me when I had my old places. I knew that she wanted to have her own place. So we started this together 5 years ago. That's happened since then. When together, these places have opened quite quickly for different reasons, different opportunities. We haven't quite got to a place where we found that work-life balance. You throw in COVID, Brexit,
Yeah,
lack of staff at the moment, financial downturn, whatever we are trading pretty well compared to many people, but we haven't quite found that balance. But our aim was also when you have one site, you can sort of only one, isn't it? One baby to worry about. Two, but you can't really afford to have any form of head office, whatever that means. Was hoped by growing to 6 we would get to that sort of place. We just haven't quite got there.
Yeah.
I think we will, because there will be economies of scale.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
tell me about.
Sorry.
Go on. Sorry.
I think we're in that sick. And again, I don't blame Rick and Jill, but I always, people call Padstow Pad Stein, but while I was there and we opened all those bits, that stuck with me, that, keep your businesses local. My 6 sites now are local, so at least I can be in them fairly quickly, but again, that's good and bad, because it means I'm probably still too involved.
Yeah. Yeah, but and this is that balance, isn't it? That being so involved that you're able to maintain them in the way that you want them to be, but then also having to spread yourself so thinly. So yes, I imagine that's a very difficult balance to get. So tell me about your 6 places then. So we know about the one, but then what are the others?
Sam's Riverside is where I'm sat now. This is our flagship, 5 years old this November. Big brasserie. We do close to 2,000 covers a week. Probably not far off the busiest restaurant in West London. Born out of lockdown, we had a storage unit on the road behind it. We were paying rent during lockdown, so we turned that into a little shop called Sam's Larder. That's our first deli, and it's I've always loved the old-fashioned word larder. I think it says so much.
Yeah.
But this was literally a cupboard, so it is a larder, and that worked. And then opposite Sam's Larder, there was a cafe that had been there for 17 years. Post-COVID, they had enough, and I don't blame them. As we know, business was tough, because I didn't want someone else to buy it, but partly because it's easier for us to be cost efficient, because it's right there.
Yeah.
We can almost run it as part of the main restaurant. So that's open. That's Sam's Kitchen. And there'll be people in there now having coffee, breakfast, lunch. In the evening, that turns into a joint called Smash and Grab. That's gone a bit crazy. We do about 200 burgers a night. And second, Sam's Kitchen in Chiswick. Fun to go back to Chiswick. On a lovely street in Chiswick. It's a bigger version of this cafe. Breakfast, lunch, coffees again, and then in the evening that morphs into, just done that into something we're calling Dinner at SK, which is sort of fine dining, if you like. Very talented young chef there, Abby. It's a fixed menu every week, no choice, tiny little kitchen. I very high end food, but in our sort of relaxed vibe, makes it quite unique. We head west to Brentford, and we have a big restaurant, water, similar to Sam's Riverside, but I didn't want to. I mean, some people would have just copied and pasted Sam's Riverside. I guess that would have been the easy option, but Brentford is not Hammersmith. These are a bit different, so that's called Sam's Waterside. An amazing, lovely new development called the Brentford Project. It is changing on a daily basis. As London sort of heads further west. We have that big restaurant, and then next to the restaurant, we have another shop there, another Sam's Larder as well.
And
yeah,
what's interesting as you're talking is sort of a noticeable trend, I guess, from when you started with your first restaurant to now, is actually that this sort of it's a necessity to be more than one thing in the daytime, isn't there? I mean, you can't these days just sort of open it, well, when you can, but as you say, like with Sam's Kitchen, that it's doing two different things and, and changing through the day. And actually, I think that's quite important in the current hospitality landscape, don't you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, point of view, it's sort of, you're paying rent 7 days a week, 24 hours. Maybe in the current climate and depending on location, you can't take as much money during the day as perhaps you once did for different reasons. It's, incredibly competitive. People are going out less, spending less. All of your costs have increased. So maybe in the past you could make enough money just during the day. I can only talk about my sites. Now can't. So, we need to morph into something in the evening, which is fun, but it's a lot of hard work. And at the fine dining restaurant that we've just opened 3 nights a week, obviously it's not a totally new bricks and mortar site. The site's already there, but it's still pretty much the same work as opening a new place. In terms of team, menu, development, training, press, marketing, all the rest of it. Probably wouldn't have it any other way because I feed off that sort of creativity.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot.
I mean, so in all of that, I mean, you've alluded to sort of a period of burnout, but there must have been dark days and things that you consider mistakes and missteps you've taken along the way. I've always found these very interesting because it is where people make, there are good opportunities for learning. I mean, are there any of those you're prepared to share with us?
You touched on a couple of things. I mean, when I opened Sam's Brasserie in Chiswick, I was 32. For my age, I had a lot of restaurant experience running other people's restaurants. But as I said, the pressure of running your own business and having 50, 60 staff, payroll, massive burden. And it took me, now I'm 51, and I still find that I have 130 staff and I feel sick when it comes around to, not because I think, it's just that there are crunch points, but you become a bit better at dealing with it. I remember my first rent review with my landlord in Balham. I was so green and naive. So I think I've learned to be afraid to ask for advice, not, to lean on people, okay, to not know or to, but the worst thing would be to not, to learn from your mistakes. And I think maybe young and we had amazing reviews to begin with. You can feel a bit indestructible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I probably, after that first success of Sam's Brasserie, your ego, but it can, you've got to watch out because you in the bum very quickly.
Absolutely. So what's the plans for the future then?
Still think it's, as I said, we're lucky that we trade pretty well. I definitely think it's tough. A tough winter ahead, and big budget news to come tomorrow, haven't we?
Yeah.
I think good restaurants will always succeed, but you have to work. I mean, you have to work much harder than any of us ever had, just to stay cash positive.
Yeah.
From our point of view, we have done probably a bit too much too quickly, just because for different timings. Now have these 6 sites, and I think we need to sort of hunker down, get them as performing to their highest capacity. Actually, for me and my business partner and our teams, of us, you only have so much capacity for for growth. Yes. So I think we will wait. Someone offers me another amazing site. No,
And then you
I
won't
would
be able to help. You can't help yourself then.
yeah, say that I like running towards the sun because I think we'll focus on what we're doing and just try because I as I said I think it's badly on anyone, but I think there will be more closures coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you've just got to have to be on to survive this winter. We're gonna have to be on our A game every day. Nice focus, I think.
Yeah, so a period of consolidations. You need that sometimes, don't you?
Definitely.
Fantastic. So thank you so much for your time. So I will put it all in the show notes, but can you just let people know how they can connect with you or contact you?
Oh yes.
Yes.
Our Sam's Riverside website is samsriverside.co.uk. You can find links to our other sites. Instagram for Sam's Riverside is at Sam's Riverside. Wants to contact me personally, questions at samsriverside.co.uk. Drop me an email, and the team will forward it to me. Come and try any of our venues in West London. I'm in one of them almost every day. I have done all 6 in one day. I guess if I had to invite you to try any of them, I'd love you to come and try the new dinner at SK in Chiswick. Just because I such an amazing, talented chef, of different from what we do in my big restaurants. That it's actually quite a nice change of direction for me. So.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sam, for your time. Absolutely amazing what you're doing and your just even your energy to be able to do all of that is inspiring. So thank you so much.
What happened to your restaurant?
My restaurant, oh dear me, that is another podcast. I mean, literally, actually, it is another podcast. I recently did a very similar podcast to this for somebody else, which actually is going to be as a bonus episode on the Kith Kin, which is yes, that conversation. I think they gave me an hour, and I think it took an hour and a half. But it's not. But actually, it's not a very dissimilar story to yours. It's just that at the point after your first two, we almost share a story, and then I went in a slightly different direction. But perhaps I'll save that for that podcast. You can catch up with that there. Thank you so much.